Hey everyone, this is Robert Keens with goldsilverpros.com. I have a returning guest to the show, Mr. David Morgan of the Morgan Report, who joined us at the conference back in August, and we're delighted to have you back on. David, how are you doing today?
Doing well, a bit early, but I'm good. Thank you.
Well, I wanted to lead off because I think you've updated one of your books, the Silver Manifesto. Why don't you tell us why you updated that and have re-released this to the public?
Well, when myself and Chris Marchese wrote the book, we thought at a very opportune time to kind of make available a compendium on the silver market. And we had, pretty good success. I think we sold about 1,000 copies. We went through Amazon, and we basically ran out of the book. And there was so little interest after it was sold out over months that we just put it on hold. And then we decided that, silver is really starting to run again. Let's get ahead of the curve. So we don't have it on Amazon anymore. Some of the used copies were selling for 100, 150. I had met a guy at the PDAC, the biggest mining show in the world, Prospectors Development Association of Canada. You can look it up if you're not familiar with it. He paid $225 for the book. I felt really, really bad. He had all kinds of tabs and yellow highlights and everything else. And I sat with him for a good half hour, kind of went through a few of his questions. So we're the silvermanifesto.com. You can go on the website. We published it ourselves. We mail it ourselves. And if you're interested, it's a pretty good value. If you look at what I'm working for you, it's probably 12 cents an hour when you consider what the book costs and how many hours it took Chris and I to do the research, write it, rewrite it, edit it, publish it, etc. But it's a good one, I think, but that's me saying it. Mike Maloney said it was one of the best books on silver that he's ever read. So I've got that well-known.
That's a good endorsement. Yeah.
Endorsing the book. Yeah. Enough said, probably. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it's at the silvermanifesto.com. It has its own landing page.
Okay, good. And I think you can get that out on Amazon too.
No, it's not on Amazon anymore.
It's not on Amazon. Okay. Yeah. Your old one's on Amazon, I know. Okay. But this one you have to go to the Silver Manifesto.
Yeah, and you're going to save money. If you go to the silvermanifesto.com, you're going to pay a lot less than these resales on Amazon.
Gotcha. Okay, good to know. Well, thank you so much. I was listening to an interview you had, David, with Daniela Cambone on Stansberry Research. I think it came out a couple of days ago, and you're talking about the silver market. That's something that Chris Marcus of Arcadia Economics and me talked about the other night on his show about what's going on with silver and what the general direction would be. I wonder if you would give us your opinion on where we are in silver inventories and maybe where the price is going over the next, say, 6 months or so. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, definitely higher. I mean, 6 months even is a tough call, but higher. And the demand of so first of all, silver it's a fact that industrial demand plays a part in the silver price, but it's always the last buyer that bids the price up, which is investment demand. And investment demands, and excuse the expression often used but true, is off the charts. This year, the investment demand has equaled the industrial demand, and we're in October. We've never had that kind of investment demand on an annual basis in the last 2 decades. Probably haven't had that kind of demand since the time silver was money on the investment side. So this is a huge tip of the hat to everybody that follows the silver market that we're really getting warmed up, because let's, for example, say that we have the same amount of demand next year. And of course, industrial demand is going to be falling by maybe 10%, maybe 20%, but it's still there. There's a lot of stuff that has to have silver. It's essential. So if we get the equal amount of investment demand next year that we had this year, then I would be fairly confident in saying we could really start to see a squeeze in the physical supply. Not that we haven't seen a huge movement, not that what I just said can be taken lightly, but there was a pretty good buildup in the silver market over the years that silver was running around the $18 level, or sub 20, I'll call it. And the bullion banks basically didn't have anything to do except buy it and stick it on the shelf. But it doesn't take long for that to flip flop from, let's call it oversupply quotation marks to a deficit. And that's where we are, and that's where we're probably going to continue to be. So long term, always bullish. I will admit many times, Robert, and people probably that follow me closely are probably sick of me saying it, but I got the top, every top so far, almost to the day. But I was really, really, really wrong on how much this contra trend within the secular bull market would take. I was thinking 2 years, 3 at the most, and it really was like 7, 8 years. But that's behind us. You know, you can live in the past or not. You know, you can't drive very well looking in the rearview mirror. You got to look ahead. So I'm looking ahead, and the setup now is incredible. There's nothing like it in my vast experience of 40 years following the silver market almost daily, where you've seen this kind of offtake of physical silver, mostly in the ETFs. The retail market's being squeezed, and the premiums have flown sky high, and they've fallen back somewhat, but still much higher than normal. And again, we're just setting a new base. We're setting a base around the $25 level. Will it hit 20? Could. I don't think it'd last very long. If it did, it'd be a buying opportunity. And we're just going to go higher. There's no question about it. So I've overplayed that probably, but that's it. But it's nice to know the specifics behind why it will go higher, and it's supply and demand. And I know it's overplayed, and I know there's, you know, naked shorts and all the stuff we talk about all the time. But the bottom line is there's this much money chasing this much physical silver. And as long as the physical demand is strong enough, something's got to give. And it's probably going to be a couple things. What's going to give is the price. It's going to go higher. And then it could be a shortage of silver. And if that happens on the investment side, watch out what happens on the industrial side, because Apple Computer isn't going to get out of business because they can't get silver. When, you know, they're putting 25 cents in a $1,000 iPhone. If it goes 10-fold, they're still going to buy it. If it goes 100-fold, they're still going to buy it because they can't build the iPhone without it. And that holds true almost across the board. So I think there's going to be a double play in silver that most people don't see coming.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'll add to that. I think the rise of the Chinese middle class will have a lot to do with it as well. The government's come out and said that they want to increase the middle class average wealth by about 50% from $10,000 to $15,000. But to do that, well, as their wealth increases to the Chinese middle class, you're going to have 190 million people wanting some of this technology. So I think it's bullish not only for silver, but maybe even some base metals like copper. And that's something I don't think a lot of people are talking about with a lot of these metals used industrially. There's incredible demand that's going to be coming from Asia as well over the next few years.
Well said. Agree.
I wanted to turn attention to an announcement the U.S. Mint made, I want to say a couple of weeks back. I think it was reported on October 9th, the first that I saw it. They're raising their premiums on what I would call maybe a semi-numismatic coin, the Brilliant Uncirculated Silver Eagle. I think now it's going to be $67. For those people getting into silver for the first time, is it worth it buying one of those proof or Brilliant Uncirculated coins from the Mint, or what's the best way to get into silver?
Well, I wrote the 10 Rules of Silver Investing almost 2 decades ago. So I would encourage anyone, even new or old, but primarily new, it's free. And just type in 10 Rules of Silver Investing or 10 Rules of Silver Investing by David Morgan. You'll find there's several websites that have it. We have it on our website for free. And the main point of that question is answered in that. It's basically get the most silver you can per dollar invested. And if I might digress a bit, Robert, I was pretty much anticipating this question. And just to take a minute, especially for new investors and even older investors, about the premium on silver. And this is why you don't, now, if you want to buy that coin for collector purposes or to have it or a birthday gift, that's fine. But you don't want to be in that mode, because here's the facts. This is from my friend, the money changer, Franklin Sanders. We've known each other for a very long time. So a second simple concept, that things even out over time. Over time, premiums always disappear. The past 30 years have seen this principle revenged many times in silver and gold. And he gives a couple of examples. And then he goes on to say that basically whether you have a silver eagle, a silver maple, or a silver round, as the market continues onward over time, that the premiums disappear.
Mm-hmm.
So to be crystal clear, when you go to sell back to a metals dealer, a coin dealer, a bullion dealer,
Mm-hmm.
if you have a silver eagle that you paid a $6 premium on, a silver maple that you paid a $5 premium on, and a silver round that you paid a $2 premium on, when you sell back, they're all going to be sold or you bought back at spot. So they're all going to get spot price, because an ounce of silver is an ounce of silver is an ounce of silver. And I want to qualify that slightly. You could possibly get a bit more of a premium for the maple and the eagle. Maybe, not always. But I want people to be cognizant of that fact. So when the premiums are sky high, you either can hold off, and the market's the market. I mean, I'm not going to say the premiums are going to come down and reestablish, because there's a tight supply in the retail side, and it's getting tighter in the wholesale side or the commercial bar side. But just be aware that that's a fact. And, if these premiums come back to where they were before, and a lot of people that bought silver at 28 with a $6 premium, they're going to be pretty unhappy if when silver gets back to 28 and it's a $3 premium or something. But anyway, back to you.
Wanted to switch over to the other precious metals, gold here for a moment. Is your outlook on gold similar to silver, or is it different, and why?
It's somewhat different. I mean, in the current economic conditions, they're both safe haven status. It's proven by the amount I just said earlier about what the ETF offtake is and what the retail market looks like. But gold's safe haven status is establishment. It's coveted by the banks, even though they don't say it. And when I did that lecture series many times here over the last year or so, I said, what if silver were treated like gold? Implying that if silver was taken to the banking establishment as money, you'd have a much different ratio. It'd probably be like 5-to-1, because silver would have to be, gold would have to be priced in silver. If you price gold in paper only, the ultimate price is infinity in a fiat system. I mean, that's the trend. Does it get there? No. There'll be a new monetary system before the US dollar hits absolute zero. I can almost guarantee that. But it will trend fast enough where people will want out of the dollar and into precious metals. So that's the point I'm looking for. That's the tipping point, inflection point. And the hardest part of that is timing it. Will it go on for a year, or will it go on for 10? Most likely more close to a year than it will 10. So gold is establishment, and it's to preserve wealth for the wealthy. Silver, they ignore, or at least ignore publicly. Certainly don't want anything to do with it monetarily. And this is where we have all the power, because it's the banks have very little silver and we can accumulate it. We can actually have more power than them, because silver is much more essential to the economy than gold ever will be. I mean, if it got down to a thought experiment where you could mine silver or mine gold, and the world was actually, in this desperate, desolate, dystopian, situation, and the only thing to save the planet was clean water, to use silver to purify water, to use as a biocide, and all the properties that silver has, you would instantly, make the silver mine viable and not the gold mine. And, so there's that. So, I'm biased, but I've studied silver. I mean, when I started off, I was a gold bug. I was asked this on another interview. I don't want to take too long on the question, but I was like convinced gold, read everything on, read a great deal on gold. And then after the Hunt situation, I said, why did the Hunts buy silver and not gold? Now, they did buy gold, but nothing like the amount of silver. And that was the quest that started me to really do the research and dig deep to find out why they preferred silver.
And so can you summarize quickly, why did they go after silver versus gold?
Well, it was undervalued relative to gold. It was used in industry not to the level that it is now. And basically, it was just a much better opportunity in smaller markets. So if you're going to, I don't know if they really had in mind of cornering the market. They're accused of that. Regardless, it shows that a smaller market can move higher and faster. So it's a much less available than even in those days than gold. So if you're buying a lot of it, and there's not very much of it, it's supply and demand does work, and that's what happened.
Another one of the topics you got into on your Stansberry interview the other day was the cryptocurrencies, but as they relate to state issued cryptocurrencies and what that system may be, that kind of dovetails in with a lot of research I've been doing since 2019 on the IMF and their published plan in 2015 to implement digital ledgers across the central banking system. We now have two bills in Congress to regulate private cryptos and to promote a ledger account for every American. We also see the European Union and the some prominent Asian nations like China adopting plans for Fedcoin, basically, the federal version of the cryptos. I wanted to get your thoughts on that. What could be happening there, and what are our escapes from that, if any, if they do implement that system?
Yeah, great question. Probably the most important one we've asked so far, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I went pretty deep on that topic in the Morgan Report. Now, there's the newsletter, which is free, and then there's the Morgan Report, which is a premium paid service.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been looking at this for quite some time. We've been writing about the blockchain for a few years now.
Mm-hmm.
And I took the whole editorial section and discussed it. Now, we're seeing a lot of YouTubers talking about, CB, central bank DC, CBDC, central bank digital currency. Digital currency, for those that don't know, it's not a cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm.
It could be put on the blockchain, but not even necessarily there. So, Robert, in a summation on that question, yes, the banks aren't going to give up their power. They want a new monetary system. They want a cashless society, and they want control. So what I wrote a few months previous to the article I'm referring to in the Morgan Report, I talked about Mark Carney when he was the chief of the Bank of England, saying exactly what they wanted was modern money theory, unbacked, track and trace digital currency produced by the banking elite. That's the direction they want to go. Then the really pertinent part of the question is, what can we escape? And of course, the best escape is, the old fashioned, silver coin, right? Or, you don't want a slab coin. I just happen to have a couple on my desk. I own very few Numis, but there's one. But, so that's number one. And number two is, I think, some cryptos. In the report that I'm referring to, I said, I don't see the government shutting down the cryptocurrencies at all. Mm-hmm. What I do see is them mandating that you can only get a mortgage if you use central bank digital currency. Mm-hmm. You can only get a utility hookup if you use a central bank digital currency. You can only rent a car. So you can see where this is going. And I'm pretty certain I'm right. I'll take the argument. I don't know. But that's the way they usually play it. It's like totally voluntary, but you have to use our currency to buy a house, rent a car, buy groceries, get gasoline, put your kids in school, or do anything else. Now, if you want to use Bitcoin peer-to-peer to buy a house, yeah, you could, but there aren't too many Bitcoiners out there. And there's some, but relative to the amount of people that are in the established banking system, very few that could buy a house. But someone would say, yeah, I got this many Bitcoin, I'll accept it, that's fine. Or do payment in some other type of crypto. And I think the asset-backed cryptos that are precious metal assets might be able to help the situation somewhat, or at least help you escape part of this problem. It's a problem to me, maybe not to you, where you could have, again, peer-to-peer. And there will be a free market, it'll probably be called black market. Well, you'll have arbitrage between the two. Somebody somewhere, and it'll be more than one, will be able to take your Bitcoin, convert it to Fedcoin, and you'll be able to make that house purchase. But it'll be a gray market, and it will be a little risky, but there's opportunity there. So I could see that taking place. So did I answer the question? I hope I did, because I call them as I see them. That's how I see it right now. Get more data, I've changed my mind, but I think that's what they're going to do. So, we don't care about cryptos. You just have to, use them all you want, except you can't use it for anything that you really need, because we control that.
Right. Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. And I think the central bank digital currencies will eventually replace the dollar, although I'm not convinced they can quite get rid of cash yet, because I think so many nations, especially in Europe, but to some extent, the United States rely on cash. So I think they're going to sort of phase it out over time. But eventually,
yeah, if I could just add on, sorry if I interrupted. I think, You're right. It's a lot easier said than done. I
Hmm.
mean, right now, I forget the number, but it's something like 96% is digital already.
Hmm.
But that 3 or 2%, whatever, it's a very small percentage, is still huge. As all of these third world countries, and they rely on the dollar. The dollar is gold to them.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of cash in the system. So I totally agree, Robert. I think that's good insight on your part that it's not, it can be talked about. I write about it, cashless society. That's what they want.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that's what they're going to get.
Yeah. It may take at least a generation or so to get there. So I do think we have some time, but I think they're definitely moving that direction. I agree with you. Something that you spoke about at our conference back in August, so I wanted to bring it up here, and I think you mentioned a few minutes ago, were hard asset backed cryptos. I know you're associated with one. Did you want to take a moment to talk about? I believe it's Loadcoin. Is that the correct one?
Yeah, it's Load. If you want more information, they've done, I think, a really killer video, but we're all subject to propaganda. I wouldn't call it propaganda, but it's definitely pushing the idea of a cryptocurrency. It's at ag.load.one. So ag, the symbol for silver, .lode.one. Watch the first video. I think it's a minute and a half. Talks about monetary freedom.
Okay.
And I think it's an adjunct to money in your hand. What I like about it is it appeals to the younger generation. It's a way to digitize silver, and you can take silver out of the system and bring it home or bring it to your office or whatever. But it's a way to spend it, because a way to really put silver back into the monetary system is for we the people to do it. It won't be the banks, as I said earlier. But if we do it, and the part I like that's very seldom talked about is that people that have something to sell, doctor, lawyer, dentist, newsletter writer, CBD oil, I mean, you name it, you can be part of the Load system and set your own price. So you might have a price for me, let's say consultation is $500 an hour. But but I'll accept $400 an hour if you pay me in Load. So now you're getting a 20% discount. So you've got that premium that you have to pay for a coin or whatever. And it's very high in the global world system, but I'll stop there. So now you're saying, well, you know what? I can pay in silver, and I can get a pretty good discount on my next, air trip or airplane trip, which is, I have to laugh. It's the airline industry's been so decimated. It's not funny, but so much has been in the economy. It's not funny at all, but it's serious. I laugh. I'm hiding behind humor because it is so serious. But so there's that. Very seldom talked about, but I like the idea because it helps everybody. It's silver to silver, peer to peer, and you could produce a service at a discount and be very willing to accept silver as a superior payment to fiat.
Last question for you, David. I know that you have an information service as well. Why don't you share with the viewers how to get in contact with you if they want to subscribe to the Morgan Report?
Yeah, it's very simple. Just go to morganreport.com, and there is a subscribe button. It has a sales letter and it has a sales video. And if you're not convinced by those two things, then that's fine. Do it anyway. And you do it anyway, and you don't like it, you get your money back. So it's a no lose, win-win proposition. And most people that sign up are anyone that's in the newsletter industry that has subscribed to a newsletter is usually extremely happy. People that have no benchmark, you really don't know what to expect. I really greatly prefer people that have already experienced the services of XYZ Publishing House and ABC Publishing House, some of the bigger personalities in the industry, and they have a basis and know what they get for their money. And then when they come to the Morgan Report, they'll see what the difference is. But I wouldn't tell anyone that's brand new, don't do it. But really, we're looking for people that are familiar with the equity markets, that are seasoned investors, have at least 5 years experience, and they have kind of a realistic expectation. People that don't, I've had people that subscribed that thought that was like a multi-level marketing system or something. And I don't know how they get there if they look at the sales letter. But anyway, Robert, I probably belabored the point, but I want it to be good to everybody. We do our best to help everyone we possibly can through the sector. It's not just silver. We looked at all the minerals. We've written about all of them over time. I was first on rare earths. I was really big on zinc when it was a shortage. We doubled our money on a zinc position that had a high silver subset. And copper, I'm toying with. I'm not sold on copper just yet. I want to see the breakout on the copper chart, but once it gets there and proves it to me on the monthly, I'll be probably writing about the copper market.
Great. Thank you so much, David, for rejoining the program. We appreciate it. Look forward to having you on again sometime in the future.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.